Aggression is a relatively common feature in conduct disorder, but it also very often occurs in ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Together, these disorders have a frequency of 5 to 10% in the population, which means that in the European Union alone, 5.4 million kids and adolescents are affected with either CD and or ADHD. Of course, only a few of them will show aggression, but still, given these sheer numbers, this is an important problem to the patients themselves, to their families, and to society as a whole. Aggressotype is a consortium of researchers that is funded by the European Union to do research into the causes and consequences of aggression in childhood psychiatric disorders, conduct disorder, and ADHD.
Observations of families show us that aggression runs in families. A parent who's aggressive is more likely to have an aggressive child than a parent who's not aggressive. This doesn't happen all the time, but it happens enough for us to suspect that genes are involved in aggression. I can't emphasize how strong this evidence is. It points unequivocally that genes must play a role in aggressive behavior. It doesn't mean the environment's not important, but it means that genes are also important. This is not simply a strong opinion. This is not an idea based upon one study, but it's based on decades and decades of careful research that have pointed us in this direction. And that's why in Aggressotype, we're studying genes as part of a way to understand why some people are aggressive. If we can improve our ability to predict which children become aggressive and which do not, we can better allocate scarce societal resources to those people who need it so that we can prevent aggression and treat aggression in the population. And in this way, Aggressotype is hoping to help children, families, and society by reducing aggression in the population.
Within Aggressotype, we're using both a traditional lab model, which is the mouse, as well as a small tropical fish called the zebrafish. The mouse is an excellent model to study aggression because genetically they're very similar to other vertebrates, such as humans, for example, and we can also characterize their aggressive behavior really well. In Aggressotype, we're using zebrafish to screen for novel drugs which can reduce aggression. The zebrafish is actually an ideal model organism to conduct this research because they're small and they're very easy to keep in the laboratory. And importantly, these drugs we'd like to look at can simply be dissolved in the fish's tank water, which removes the need for a painful injection which you might see in other animals. The aim of this part of the project is to find new drugs which can reduce aggression levels without affecting other behaviours. If we find promising results, we can then repeat this research using our mouse models as part of Aggressotype as a first step towards developing novel treatments for human patients. We believe that this animal research is vital to improve the health of human patients, so as part of Aggressotype we're trying to identify, classify and then treat aggression.
Well, we've been screening offenders who are coming into the prison. They're all young men aged between 80 and up to 30. Most of them are no more than 25. And first of all, we found that about 25% screened positively for ADHD. And then after we did a very careful diagnostic assessment, we actually found that about 20% of the offenders in the prison had ADHD. That's 1 in 5 of these prisoners met diagnostic criteria for ADHD. So we then invited these people to take part in this clinical trial, and then we followed them up over 3 months. These are the preliminary data. And so far we see really marked reductions. I mean, first of all in ADHD symptoms, but also in other important domains like emotional instability, and even their attitudes towards violence changes. It seems that they can now stop and think before they're acting, and it actually alters the way they evaluate how they would react in a violent situation. And also, on the other hand, they're also a bit much more engaged in education and the rehabilitation process.
We are a non-profit umbrella of 30 support organisations from 21 countries, which were founded by people with ADHD or parents of children with ADHD, and we work together to improve the situation of people with ADHD. For people concerned by aggression and their families, these symptoms can be an immense worry, and yet it's really hard to find good evidence-based treatment to target the aggressive behaviour. For that reason we welcome Aggressotype, because it's a step towards meeting their needs.